Hi, so this is kind of a tutorial slash guide, whatever, about driving in Mafia. So basically this is going to be for anyone, pretty much, beginner or experienced runner. I think this is especially for beginners. I will cover like everything that I can think of, but even if you're an experienced player, I think you can actually take something from this. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not the best driver in this game, and it's definitely like apparent in my runs, but I kind of get how it works, so I think I'm able to give you like basic idea of what you do. So I'm going to be showing this with kilometers per hour. It's up to you what you use, but the numbers are gonna be different, so just keep that in mind. Nothing really matters here, except for the car settings, I guess. Yeah, so basically the acceleration does everything the same for both of them, I think. So I usually just keep this as it is. Steering, this is left, this is right. Is different from like the primary and secondary. Basically, if you imagine driving in a car, then the primary one is when you slowly steer the wheel to left or right, but the secondary one is just if you completely flick the wheel to the steering wheel to the side, like as much as you can. That's what the secondary does. What you might need here is set up these two. So it doesn't matter what you have them set to, but I recommend putting it to something comfortable for you, so that you can press it at any time of the gameplay. Some people do Q and E and hold it like, I don't know, like it's up to you. This is like really weird setup because I have it like on E and on right control, and the reason for that is because if I have my left hand on the S and F, then and D maybe, then my last finger is always on the E. It just naturally rests here. Sorry for the stutter. And for arrows, which are here, when I put my hand there, my thumb rests on the control, so I can always press it without having to worry about anything. So that's why I have it here. So I recommend putting these two on some finger, on some button where your finger just rests and you can press it anytime. And along with that, you should be able to show your map, which is this one, while you are holding those two keys down, and I'll show you why right from the beginning. So I'll actually start the first mission. Okay, I won't really do anything. I'll just drive it really wonky because I just want to get to the bridge. Oh my god. Okay, they popped my tire, but it doesn't matter now. In the run, this will be reset. So basically, when you drive, if you rotate the camera like that, the cars in front of you won't spawn. And you probably know that already, but it's important to bring it up, because when you're going to this bridge, from this point you can basically another tire. You can basically have the camera rotated all the time, and what you want to do is like show the map at the same time and navigate just by looking at the map, so you know how to steer your wheel on the bridge. So that's something like that allows you to basically do these parts like more safe without spawning cars. That's just basically something you like. There's no reason for you to not bind it properly. You are just hurting your runs if you don't do that. You can obviously remember the path, but it's pretty hard to navigate like blindly. So I just recommend you to set it as I say. You don't have to do it on the same buttons, just have it in a comfortable way. So there's speed limiter and important things. Klaxon, I'm not gonna talk about it, like I will just mention it right now and then I'm gonna ignore it. If you use your klaxon, it will actually just make the car in front of you move. And it's gonna move in the direction, like if you're on the left side of the car, then it will move to right. If you're on the right side, then it will move to left. But if you're in the middle, it's kind of like wonky, so it might run in your way. So just be careful about when you use it. And don't forget that it can make other cars move, even though you don't want them to. So there's three more important keys. So first is manual. That's just M by default. You can bind it to whatever you want. And then changing the gear. So the A is by default is changing the gear, like switching it to higher gear, and then Z is for switching it down. And then there's another important thing, and that is handbrake. I will also talk about clutch. You can use it in some situations, but we'll get to it later. And I forgot to mention the secondary braking or slowing down. The secondary one is actually a bit more, it's a bit faster than the first one. So if you want to slow down just a little bit, then you use the primary key, which is arrow down in this case. And if you want to, like, if you are just stopping, you want to use the secondary one. It doesn't make that big of a difference, it's just a tiny little difference, but it still helps. I think that's all the keys covered, so we can start. So, for those who have never used manual driving, I'll just show you what it is like. So, this is automatic driving, and you can see that it switched to, if you take a look at my speed, it switched to 2 right when it passed over 30. But that's actually bad, because if you look at this is so much faster than this. It doesn't gain the speed properly, so the automatic gearing system is actually bad. But also you have to do something, like you have to be switching the gears properly every time. So how do you know when you should switch the gear? So as you can see now, I'm in the first gear and it just won't ever go above 45. So you can also like listen to the motor, and as you can hear about like this sound, when the car is kind of like struggling, that's when you swap it or whatever, and that's when the motor is most efficient. You can see it here it starts to sound like that again, so you switch it. But the important thing is that sometimes it's not actually worth it. For example, if you are taking a turn, let's say we are in this situation, then if you switch to 2, then it would be slower, because turn slows you down. So basically every time you hear this sound, like the motor starts like throttling or something, then you just switch it up. Simple as that. Every car has this the same way, except the sound of the motor is a bit different. And the ranges of the speeds obviously are different. If you don't want to learn manual driving yet, then there's like one thing that can help you. If you like crash into something, I'll just try to okay, I won't do it because I don't want to damage this car. But if you crash into something, it will stay in the high gear that you were in. It won't automatically stop. As long as you are holding the key down, it won't switch down. So anytime you go into a turn, for example, wait, this is blocked, I forgot. Well, anytime you go into a turn and you press the arrow up again, it will switch to the correct gear for a little while, but it will obviously switch back. So if you're an absolute beginner and don't want to bother with manual driving, then you can just use that, but you have to let go of the key, and then it will switch automatically once you press it again. And there's an important thing to mention about manual driving, and that is hills and so on. You can see that my car is going at like 60 and it's kind of stuck here when I'm driving in the second gear, and that is actually what you want, because if I just let it go at manual, I hope I will reach the similar speed, but I probably won't. Okay, you can see that it's dropping much more than it was on the second gear, and when I switch to 2, it almost stops moving down. So if you are going like at some speed that, if you see that the speed is going down uphill, then you should probably change the gear down. That's basically how it works. That's probably the biggest time save. Like if you just let this go in automatic, like downhill, it's not gonna matter that much. It's gonna make a little bit of difference, but it's not so significant as like this. If I drive in the third gear or second, it's gonna be actually so much faster in the second. Basically watch how the speed behaves. Drive a bit, maybe in freeride, maybe in speedrun mode, whatever you want, but watch the speed, watch how it behaves, and listen to the motor, and you will basically get the idea how you should change the gears. And basically that's for Falconer. For Falconer it's really easy. It's just the first speed change you do is like between, like here. Oh. The first change you do is about between 30 and 45. Then the second change is somewhere between 60 and 75. Then it's between 90 and 105. It doesn't matter if I say to tell you the numbers, because you should be able to figure it out based on the sound and based on how the car behaves. But most importantly, if you are really a newbie and just started playing the game, just use automatic and try to at least like use the pressing the arrow up again to switch to the correct gear, especially in turns and such. If you are a bit more serious about the run, at least try to switch to manual in like uphill. It really doesn't hurt, and it's so easy to do because you do basically nothing when you're uphill. So it's just so easy to just press one key and switch to manual and continue going like that. Nothing really scary. If you don't want to like care about the third and fourth gear, it's fine. It's not gonna help you that much. But if you're like super serious about the run, then learn where you should swap it. The more simple car that is there is actually bolt ace, and you can see that all the bolt aces are the same, and that's actually not true. I'll take for example, it doesn't matter what I take. So if I take this car, I'm driving in manual now, and you can see that immediately it gets stuck. So when you're about at the 30, you switch it to 2. That's as simple as bolt aces. There's nothing to it, there's no third gear, you just have 2 gears and that's all. Like, you don't have to care about anything. And even in turns, you shouldn't ever go into the first gear. You are just going to be at this speed most of the time. Unless you crash into something which you basically can throw away that bolt ace. There is, however, something interesting about bolt aces that was found recently by me. That the pickup is actually the fastest one of them. Even though it says the same values, and I measured how the average speed goes when you drive it, and it's basically faster by almost 2 kilometers per hour, which isn't that big in any percent run, but it's kind of big for master race, for example. But as you can see, the gearing system is the same. You switch at 30, roughly about that, and you just go. That's all you have to like know. Nothing complicated. If you forget the menu in bolt ace, you are losing maybe like it's really just a tiny difference for bolt ace. Don't worry about it. So it's just if you want to be absolutely perfect, then that's what you're gonna like look into. Bolt B8, I'm pretty sure you can figure it out, okay? But based on the sound and stuff. But there's one car that we use all the run, and we don't actually use the manual driving, and that is the bolt thrower. So you can see the acceleration is pretty fast, unless I do something like this. But you can see that it's like going so fast that it might be not even worth to switch it. But it actually is worth. But it will like save you so little time that it's not gonna have any effect. I think it's somewhere around 60, and I messed it up because it accelerates so fast. So it's just... oh, press the wrong key. Well, it basically is somewhere around 60 to switch it up, then it's somewhere around there, and... oh no, it's actually a bit later. Basically, you don't have to do this. With bolt thrower, don't worry about switching your gears unless you want to be absolutely perfect, and I don't think that anyone does that. Don't bother with it. The only place where you want to bother with manual gearing in bolt thrower is actually Oak Hill, which I'm not sure if I can show you. It is, I think, this one. Well, I can't, because I cannot pick bolt thrower. But basically, bolt thrower, if you are in Oak Hill, for example, in Visiting Rich People, or if you play Omerta, then in Bertoneran, then there also. Then if you are going slow, then and the car doesn't want to go, then just downshift the gear, and that's all you have to do. For bolt thrower, don't care about it at all. Like, don't worry about it. It's not gonna lose you that much time if you don't switch the gears. I think you should be able to kind of figure out now how to switch it for every car in the game. It's really not that difficult. You don't have to be a driver in real life. You'll get it, like, I don't know, in 30 minutes you'll figure out every car that you need in the run. And there's actually one thing that I want to show you, and there is, or there's more things that I want to show you. It's not gonna be strictly driving, but kind of driving related things that you might like find useful. So for example, in, why is he not talking? Oh, because I disabled the dialogues. For example, in Running Man, there's often the problem that people arrive at a place and the triggers just don't work. They are waiting for such a long time and nothing seems to be happening. So the reason for that is a bit strange, but I don't know why they did it like that. Basically, the car goes at certain speed, and when you stop it, the car will actually go... It will not actually go to 0, but the trigger is only triggered when the speed is 0. So that's kind of... I'm driving poorly now. So basically, what happens is if you, for example, go on a sidewalk like this, and you seem to stop, then the car is like on some ledge that it cannot really like properly stop on. It just won't stop on the terrain, and it will keep it at very, very low speed, like 0 point something, you get the idea, kilometers per hour, and that actually makes you not get the trigger. That's one of the things. So you never go on the sidewalk, you never go on the stairs at the hospital. But sometimes it happens even regularly. Like if you arrive there, then it will just sometimes happen that you are waiting for way too long. That is because sometimes it doesn't work even on flat surface. You might have noticed that when you arrive at the hospital, you do a little drift, and it almost always activates very quickly. The reason for that is that the drift actually just stops the car faster. It makes it go to the 0 value faster. So what you can do to help you a bit in the other situations is instead of just holding brake or the slowdown, you want to hold the secondary slowdown, which I have set to D, and you also want to hold the handbrake, and when you feel like you're completely stopped, like almost about to stop, I mean, then you flick your wheels a bit with the secondary, with the primary keys, which are the ones that go like faster. So when you arrive, I hold both brakes and flick the wheels a bit. Sometimes it works, sometimes... Oh, I'm not in manual, I'm sorry. That's one important thing. If you're in automatic, it's not gonna trigger if you are holding the brake, because the brake actually wants to go backwards. So, not the brake, but the slowdown. So always do this in automatic, but when you flick the wheels, it will, even though you are like on the ground, it will make you not on the ground, but if you are standing, it will make the car drift a bit, even though it's not really visible. It will slow it down faster. That's all you can do to help it. What is the mission called? In ordinary routine, when you arrive at the first place, you can actually get instant trigger if you crash into the wall a bit. That stops, crashing into something stops the car absolutely immediately. Unless you are still on some terrain that's like not exactly straight, then it's not gonna work because the car is gonna be sliding around. And now, because I didn't really talk about the secondary, primary steering, then I'm gonna do it now. So I'm gonna stay in the second gear for teaching purposes. So this is secondary, I mean primary, because that's the one that's by default on arrows. And you can see it's doing just tiny little turns, nothing big. Because if you actually look at Tommy, he's turning the wheel just a bit, gradually. The longer I hold, the more he moves it. But if I use the secondary, he turns it instantly, as you can see. So that's the difference. And in driving, if you want to do, for example, drift to stop the car faster, this is with regular steering. And this will be with the secondary. You could see that I drift much earlier because the car just moves more. That's just how it is. And if you crash into something and the car starts rotating like on its own, then secondaries are where it really helps, and a lot of new runners don't actually know that. So if you are like spinning, let's say to the left side, then all you have to do is start tapping the left secondary key. If you are spinning to the left side, you start tapping the right secondary key. That's especially important with the ball thrower, because if that flips, then you are dead. And that's basically the idea of like why even use the secondaries. It makes some corners easier to make, but it slows you down more. So most of the time you want to be using primaries, but if there's a like sharp turn, you probably want to use secondaries to make it easier. For drifts, you definitely want to use the secondaries. And if you are starting to rotate, if the car just loses control, then just tap the direction that the car is not going into against the direction that the car is rotating into. You can avoid flips with that. It can save you runs. Well, anyway, this is kind of everything that is like tier controls, but there's still some interesting things about cars. Not in fair play. Where's the mission? Oh yeah, here. So there's a possibility when you see cars actually move too fast, for example in offer you can refuse, it's because the car is boosted. It is basically supposed to accelerate faster. So for example here, this car is a car that is going to chase us, which means that once any of them enter the car, or once any of them start the car, it's gonna go faster. It's gonna be boosted. And there's actually here it's used as a safe strat mostly, because then they cannot kill you and you cannot fail the mission. But there's actually yeah, this is the one. This is probably the better one to show it on. So I'll just shoot there. I hope they don't kill me. Oh, and I failed the clip. Shouldn't be failing it so many times. Okay, so I will enter this car. I'll start it. Oh, this is one thing I forgot. If you open inventory while it's starting, the world is paused, but your car is still starting. So now, after the sound ended, my car is instantly on. So when I drive like this, you can notice that they are getting into the car, and they are starting to chase me. You can see the car is pretty fast. Okay. So when I load the game again, this time I'm not gonna be shooting, then I know they drove this car. And when I enter it, it's gonna have the boosted properties that it had once the police took it. And it's a bit difficult to drive, but I'll explain why in a bit. Or not why, but how to avoid that. So you can transition it between missions. Not between missions, but between mission parts. So I have boosted car now. It accelerates much faster. You can never go this early, like to this speed. You probably don't have to use manual because it just goes so fast. But if I just use this is primary keys, by the way. It's so ridiculously like uncontrollable. This is the only situation in which secondaries, which are these, are more comfortable than, or not more comfortable, but easier to control. This is secondary, just a little tap, and this is primary. It moves the car faster. It feels like it's like the secondaries and primaries are switched. Anyway, so basically with this car, almost always use the secondaries. Like for this, you have to like switch your brain around a bit. You can also do it, but the important thing here is the car is boosted. The reason why it's boosted is because it turned red on the minimap, and then you reloaded the same exact save and entered the car again. Like entered the car by yourself. Basically, the fact that they start the car makes it boosted, and if you reload it, then you have it boosted even for yourself. Now, you might be thinking that you could boost somehow your bolt thrower or something, but it seems to only happen with cars that actually chase you. Like, if the car in the game ever chases you, then it seems to be boostable by this method. If it doesn't ever chase you, that exact same model and color, then it's not gonna boost it. So cars that you can boost are some rides, the police car, Bolt V8. There's many of them, but basically if you are trying to somehow boost any car, then only those are gonna work. Just basically think of the cars that are ever being boosted while they chase you. Yeah, so that's car boosting. And there's maybe one more thing I wanted to mention. I just need to think for a bit because I'm... Okay, I really don't know what I want to talk about. So, well, basically it probably doesn't matter. If I remember it, I will put it in the description. But basically this is kind of all the things that are interesting about cars. And yeah, there's actually the thing I wanted to talk about. So speed limiter, mentioned it at the start, and the clutch. Yeah, okay, I got them both that I wanted to talk about. I'll put like the chapters in the YouTube video, so you can just switch it when I start talking. So if this guy gets in, I'll get to 60 speed, but I will enable the speed limiter. I'm now going in automatic because it doesn't matter. So I'm in the third gear and I'm going at 60. I'm going at 60 at all the time. It might seem like that, but this is actually slower than if I do switch to menu and do this. This is faster. It seems like a ridiculous thing, but going in the second gear is faster than if I switch back to third gear. And the reason for that, like the average speed is lower. The reason for that is because you can see that once it hits the 60, the motor is not able to move it back to 60 as quickly as if I do this. You can see that it just flicks there like very fast. It just goes up and down, and this just goes to 60 and takes a break. That's why this is slower. Even though you are like technically going at 60, what the speed limiter does, it actually just stops you for a bit, and the second gear can get you back to the speed faster. Because where you switch to third gear is between 60 and 75. So yeah. And the last thing I wanted to mention, and this is not for any well, actually two things I wanted to mention. This is not for any percent, but this is very useful in free ride extreme run, or in any percent if you are really low on gas and absolutely cannot like make it through a mission, but you still want to not die, like not kill the run. So the X button that I was talking about, I will get just police now. The X button is clutch, which what it does is basically if you don't hold down your forward key, it will not consume gas. And basically if I don't hold anything and just steer, it's not the same as if I hold the clutch. Because if I don't hold anything, you can see my speed is going down quite fast. I'm not holding it. Now I'm holding it, and the speed gets slower. So basically, if you hold the clutch, it will try to maintain the speed that you are at, but obviously it cannot maintain it because you're still not using the motor. So the good thing about it is that it doesn't burn gas, and you basically have like free speed basically. If you don't hold anything and you want to just finish a mission without gas, which is mostly just for FRE, then you hold the clutch once you are not using the motor. If I were to use the motor, if I were to use the motor and was holding down forward and held the clutch, it wouldn't actually speed the car up. So that's really important to know. But it would waste the gas, obviously. And the last thing I wanted to talk about, it's mostly for Burton run, but when you are on okay, I'll actually, this is reverse gear. It's completely on the bottom, and if you want to reverse, I actually recommend you to just switch to menu to automatic and hold back. The reason for that is because if you are in, for example, let's say you are in, how many gears does this have? I think 3. If you are in 3rd gear, then you have to like press it like many times to get it to reverse, and then you would hold forward to go back. It feels a bit unnatural if you are not used to it, and it actually is just slower because if you use it in automatic, it will get immediately to to the proper number, to the proper gear. And the last thing I want to talk about is neutral gear, which is really niche thing in this game, but it's actually useful in some parts of the game. And that is basically this. If you are on something like that is really just there's like this steep, it doesn't even have to be this steep, but any kind of thing that goes up and down, then if you switch to the neutral gear, get out, then the car will keep moving. This is really useful if you need to if you need to get this car in the water, or in FRE this is also used. And all you have to do is switch to the neutral gear, keep it there, stop the car, don't use the manual brake, you have to use the slow down and the handbrake. I mean, you shouldn't use that because the car will get stuck. And if you slow down, get out, keep it in the neutral gear, then it will just start moving again. And that's probably all that you kind of can like get use of. You can like experiment, well, you should experiment with the, can I talk normally? You should experiment with the with the manual gearing if you're new. I think that the beginning of this video is the most important, where I tell you like when to switch the gear. It's basically just following the sound, and really that's it. And knowing that if you are going uphill, then you should probably mostly switch the gear at least one down. If you are going into a turn, then you probably switch it down as well. And that's probably the most important thing. But there's also some things that I wanted to mention because some people don't know them, some people don't know how they work, and that's just basically everything I could think of when it comes to driving. So I guess see you in your streams and stuff. So I hope this gave you something, and maybe especially if you're a new runner, I hope you can improve. If this doesn't like help you at all, if there was something confusing, and I know it was because my representation of like thoughts is a bit messed up, then feel free to like message me, and I can I can try to make you understand it a bit better. But I think that you should get like basic idea of at least the gearing in this game. So that's it. Bye.